see what I see.
2 nights ago, I was talking to a friend and I asked him if his best qualities, what he thought were his best characteristics, were what other people considered his best characteristics, and whether he thought that what he considered his flaws were what other people would consider as flaws. We discussed whether or not people think they're better than they are, or if they don't give themselves enough credit and they devalue themselves. This whole conversation recently came up because I've been thinking about self-awareness and wondering how self-aware people actually are. I consider myself a relatively self-aware person, but sometimes I do get the sense that my idea of myself is skewed. But that said, I have a pretty good sense of who I am as a person and what my strong suits are and what my flaws are. I know that I have trust issues and that it takes me a while to warm up to people. And I hold a grudge like you wouldn't believe. Forgiveness does not come easily. See, when it comes to me, I'm more likely to tell you what is wrong with me, meaning what my imperfections are, than what I think are good things about me. It's just easier for me to point out the bad things and harder for me to point out the good things because I don't want to seem egotistical. But then I was wondering, are most people like that? I know a lot of individuals who are, but for the most part, a lot of people don't mind tooting their own horn. Which then got me thinking, are they correct? Or is how they see themselves kind of off kilter and maybe not so accurate? Well, then my very dear friend mentioned that there was a book called Don't Get Fooled Again, and it's by Richard Wilson. And of course it's all about how a healthy dose of skepticism is good for people because otherwise they get taken advantage of. Whereas if you're skeptical, you're less likely to fall for Ponzi schemes or answer back emails from kings in Africa who need your help. But the opening to the book was actually pretty relevant to what I was thinking about. So this is just the beginning of the book, and I was wanting to share it with you because I found it interesting. According to psychologists, the average person thinks that they're above average in terms of looks, intelligence, honesty, generosity, being a good friend, and taking the smaller bit of pizza when there are only 2 slices left. We are more likely to remember our moments of glory and more likely to forget our failures. We tend to think that the things we are bad at are things that most people are bad at, and that the things we are good at are rare and distinctive qualities. Which, how can that possibly be true? But here's the most interesting part of this whole thing. People with the most accurate view of their own talents tend to be those with mental health problems. Research suggests that, contrary to popular belief, people who suffer from an eating disorder have a more realistic sense of their own level of attractiveness than those who don't, and that clinical depressives are the group with the most consistently realistic view of their own abilities. I find that more than interesting, that the people who we consider mentally unhealthy actually have the clearer and more honest views of themselves. It's kind of backwards, or it seems kind of backwards. It doesn't surprise me because I've dealt with people with mental health issues and they're usually really self-aware. Now this book pretty much solved exactly what my conundrum was. People tend to overestimate themselves. They tend to think that they're better than they are, and they tend to disregard their flaws while embracing the things that they think are so unique and awesome about them. And I find this all very curious because I honestly thought it was the other way around. I honestly thought that people looked down on themselves and didn't give themselves enough credit, but apparently we overcredit ourselves. Do you think that you are aware of yourself, of your flaws, and of the things that are good? Do you overestimate yourself or do you underrate yourself? I would love to know. But that's it for this week, and I'll see you all again next week for another edition of That Girl Tyson.
General quarters, all hands man your battle stations, all hands man your battle stations.
And I found all of this very curious. Whoa.